Hey everyone, my name is Jimmy Smith, and welcome to episode number 63 of the Rambler Podcast, where we are passionate about sharing what makes Cathedral Prep the standard of excellence. And if we know of anything about Ed Hinkel, our guest today, he definitely knows what it means for Cathedral Prep to have the standard of excellence. Ed graduated from Cathedral Prep in 2001, and as a student athlete here, he led the Ramblers to an undefeated 14-0 season and the PIAA state championship in 2000. Over his high school career, he showcased his versatility and talent, amassing 4,625 all-purpose yards and scoring 208 points. A standout on both sides of the ball, he was recognized as the PA Football News First Team All-State Selection and the Allegheny Conference Defensive Player of the Year. In addition to his football achievements, Ed excelled in track, setting school records in the 300 hurdles and 400-meter dash. Ed continued his athletic career at the University of Iowa, where he was a 4-year starter at wide receiver and a key contributor to 2 Big Ten championship teams. As a leader on the field, he was named team captain in both 2004 and 2005. By the time he left Iowa, Ed had firmly established himself in the program's history, ranking 6th in career receptions and 14th in career receiving yards. His collegiate career was marked by memorable performances, including a school record 4-touchdown game against Minnesota during his senior year. After college, Ed signed with the Indianapolis Colts, where he briefly reunited with his former teammate from Cathedral Prep, Bob Sanders. Beyond his playing days, Ed has built an impressive coaching career. He is currently in his 18th season as an assistant coach at Iowa City Regina Catholic High School, where he serves as the offensive coordinator and associate head coach. Under his guidance, the team has made 16 playoff appearances, winning 7 state championships and achieving a state record 56-game winning streak. Ed's commitment to developing young athletes has been evident in the success of coaching players like Alec Wick, the Iowa high school career receptions leader. And off the field, Ed balances his coaching responsibilities with his role as a sales representative for Smith & Nephew, a medical device manufacturer specializing in sports medicine products. He lives in Iowa City with his wife, Keely, and their 2 sons, Holt and Hux. And we have Ed here today via Teams meeting. Ed, welcome to the podcast.
All right, thanks, man. It's great to be here.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on. I don't want to make you sound old, but the 2000 football season, I was 7 years old, and one of the first books I remember reading as a kid growing up, like real books, not just kid books, was Dan Brabender's story of the 2000 Cathedral Prep Ramblers. Yeah. So to me, you've been a legend in my mind ever since I was a kid.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, no, that was good. I remember I have a copy of that book. Remember the Ramblers? That was great. Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty cool story and the things you've accomplished, and it'll be fun. We'll kind of reflect there on the podcast, talking about your time at Prep, some of the things you've been able to do beyond your time at Prep at Iowa and coaching. And then also at the end, we're going to hit on the 1999 team. You were a junior that year, and that team is being inducted into the Prep Athletic Hall of Fame. So at the end of the podcast, we'll talk a little about that and the teammates you had there as well. But before we get rolling, also, I want to mention, I told you before we got started, I mentioned to Mike Mishler about you coming on the podcast, and he wanted me to make sure I told you this. His comments were, Ed will always be one of the greatest Cathedral Prep Ramblers of all time, and he was also a phenomenal leader. Mish said that Ed threw one of the biggest blocks in Prep history when he pancaked an Altoona defender that allowed Tim Dance to make one of the biggest plays in Cathedral Prep history. He said, please make sure he knows how highly I think of him. He's probably one of the greatest ever here from Cathedral Prep. So thought that was pretty cool and wanted to share.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I've missed to say that, kind words. And yeah, I remember that play. I wasn't I wasn't normally on the kick return team. And, at that point in the game, we needed something to happen. So I got put back there and, kind of even a more funny story, not necessarily funny, but that on that block, when I hit it, I actually broke the bone in my wrist.
Jeez.
At least we thought that was the play that happened. But yeah, I broke my scaphoid bone, fractured my scaphoid bone in my wrist, and I went on to keep playing and everything like that. But yeah, it was not the ideal time to have a fracture of my wrist. But I mean, luckily it wasn't bad enough. I played through and got played in the next 2 games and was able to finish out the year. But yeah, it was an interesting one.
I would say so. Sometimes you just got to try to make something happen, right? Ed, get out there and do something.
Yeah. I mean, we were going to do whatever we had to do at that point in the game.
Yeah. Well, and let's rewind a little bit. I always find it interesting to ask people, the guests on the podcast, how you ended up at Cathedral Prep. I mean, when you were in 7th, 8th grade, why did you end up deciding ultimately to come to prep?
Well, I was always a prep guy. I mean, my dad went to prep. My uncles went to prep. I was just, not that it wasn't a choice, but that's just what I was going to do when I decided to go where I was going to high school. I remember growing up going to games at the stadium. Every Friday night. That's what we did. Friday or Saturday night, we went to the stadium and watched prep play. And then in the winter, we went down to Saturday Gannon and watched the basketball team play. I just always wanted to. Those guys were role models for me. I wanted to play at the stadium, and I wanted to play in the Hammermill Center, the McDonald's Classics and all that stuff. And, fortunately, I was able to go on and do those things.
Yeah, pretty cool. I think a lot of us can have that sentiment of various, family members. I mean, I grew up, my dad was actually the baseball coach when you were here as a student. And to me, it was like, yeah, it wasn't about having a choice or not. It was just that's where I was going, was to prep.
Yep. Yeah, it just kind of grew up that way. And I was always going to go to prep.
Yeah. And then, so when you were a student, we'll obviously be talking about football and athletics too, but from your time as a student at Prep, what are some of your favorite memories and things you look back on from walking the halls, so to speak?
Just the things that really stick out. I mean, obviously the football and going to state and, doing that stuff. We got to go to state as a 4x1 team. My senior year and junior year, but that was just cool experiences to be able to do that. And then the rallies were always fun. Rallies before the games on Friday night, and I'll never forget. And we talk about it all the time when I get together with the guys. The rally, and I don't know if you guys still do it, but we had a rally before, like a send-off rally before we went to Hershey in 2000, and I'll never forget as the buses pull away, the whole students follow the buses and run after the buses and everything. I remember John Gannon, the kid that was a kid in our class, riding his bike, and he made it. He followed the bus. He was next to the bus, almost to where we got onto 79 North on 12th Street. So I mean, he it was probably 5 miles. He was on his bike. It was snowing out, and so I mean, I'll never forget that. I think he was carrying an American flag, on his bike. Just funny, and it's something we always talk about still.
Absolutely, that's something you'll never forget. It's that image of seeing him on that bike, flag in hand.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. Yeah, it got us going for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, we do still do rallies for the school, and they have one coming up. We play McDowell on October 4th, so I'm sure there's one that's going to be lined up prior to that game and whatnot. But yeah, it's kind of one of those prep traditions, right? I look back on my time, and those rallies were awesome.
Yeah, it's always fun when there's a rally for a game, for sure.
Yeah. Talking to you here, and it's fun to have the opportunity to reflect with you and talk about your time at prep and football specifically. And in that 2000 season, you were part of leading that team to a perfect 14-0. doing the season, the state championship. I mean, when you look back on that experience, what was it like being a part of that historic team for prep history, winning the state championship? And, when you look at that, what do you think contributed the most to the team's success ultimately that year?
I think the biggest thing, I mean, just from the beginning, I mean, our class that graduated in 2001, we knew when we were young, when we were all playing against each other in Bay City and the Bixby Bowl, at Blessed Sacrament and all that, we knew there was a pretty talented group of kids in that class. And we knew if everybody, came together in high school and went to prep, we'd have a chance to be pretty good. And luckily, a lot of those guys, ended up coming to prep. And our freshman year, we played. We had I know, Mish talks about it all the time. The freshman team that he was the head coach of, undefeated, unscored upon, was just, we knew that group could do something special if we stayed together and just worked hard as a group, and we did. I mean, we worked our butts off, and it was just, it all came together, as we went through our sophomore, junior, senior year. Everything just kind of came together, and we all gelled, and just a great group of guys. Refused to lose attitudes with those guys. We were going to do whatever it took to win games, and if it was working hard in the off season or whatever it was, we were locked in. There was nothing that was going to, we weren't going to allow anything to screw it up for us.
So you guys had the talent, but you also had the mentality, as you say, to you guys weren't going to be denied, right? You were going to do whatever it took to succeed as that group.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of was reflected in that Altoona game in the semifinals. We had our backs against the wall. I mean, we literally, I'm sure a lot of people listening will remember, the older people anyway. We were down. I mean, we were down. I think it was a point, and I threw an interception towards the end of the game, and luckily, I got a penalty on the return, right? So, because I was not happy, so the kid came to block me, and I just took his legs out. So it actually got them closer to the goal line. Right? So we called a timeout. Actually allowed Altoona to score. Coach Grahowski coming out and said, "Let them score." We're all like, "What are you talking about? We're going to let them score?" And you can see, you go back and watch the game. Joe Dipre and Charles Rush literally grabbed the quarterback. They just ran like a little quarterback sneak. They grabbed the quarterback, picked him up, and threw him in the end zone. So they. It literally then, the kickoff is Tim Dance returns the kickoff the next play, and we kind of roll from there. But that was bad. When my cousin, who was the holder, normally on kick returns, they missed one earlier in the game, and I was the holder when I was a junior and sophomore. And so I was running down after we returned the kick. I think we were down a point because they missed their extra point. So we just needed an extra point to tie, go to overtime. And I was running down the field, yelling at my cousin, just waving him off, saying, "I got it." I wasn't going to let, if we were going to lose, it was going to be on me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to let my little sophomore cousin beat
well, and I'm chuckling because before we started, I told you about the Tom Schumacher's fan question for you, and you answered it right there. Broken wrist and all, going out there to hold the extra point, making sure you guys seal the deal for the victory.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I mean, and Barry, my cousin, did a great job. He came back the next two games, came back, held in the state championship game, which is kind of another funny story. And a lot of people probably don't know this, but our kicker, Rory Maloney, in warm-ups at the state championship game, couldn't kick.
Oh,
He was having back spasms and couldn't kick. And nobody else on the team had ever kicked an extra point in a game.
wow.
All season. So I think it was Brad Warnicki. I think he played right guard for us, or one of the guard spots for us. He would always screw around in practice kicking, and so they let him kick, and he went 5 for 5 in the state championship game. I mean, it was crazy. I didn't even realize he was the one kicking until the second or third one. I was like, what the heck's going on here? But yeah, he nailed them all. I mean, he's the unsung hero of that game. I mean, nobody really talks about it, but he missed one of those extra points, and different ball game.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd never heard that story before, and like you mentioned, most people probably haven't. So, shout out to him stepping up in the big moment.
Yeah, no, he was, did what he had to do. Wasn't going to let us lose.
That's right. When you were talking about that a little bit earlier, that attitude, not going to let the team down, right? Not going to let the team lose. You guys are going to do what it takes. One of the questions I had for you was kind of reflecting on, what were some of the toughest moments or challenges you faced during your time at prep? And I'll talk about that from a sense of like, as a team, I'm sure from the outside, everyone thinks everything's always going great for prep football during those years with all the dominant players you had. But were there moments that, I don't want to say bumps in the road in a sense, but things that you guys had to come collectively together and overcome, whether it was, something that happened or whatever else? But just want to kind of get your thoughts on that too.
Well, I mean, there's always, little things throughout the season that come up that you got to work through, and injuries and things like that. I'd say the biggest thing though, like the biggest thing we had to overcome as a 2000 team was, the loss in '99 was it was tough on all of us. And I mean, I'll never forget it. Andrew Eisling is the kid, blocked the punt. I'll never forget his name. But that was tough for us. But like I said, I mean, does that 2000 team go on to have the success we had without the disappointment in '99? I don't know. It's tough to say, but I mean, I'd like to think we would have, and we would have worked as hard as we did in the off season to get back and avenge that loss. But I don't know. But it's tough to say. I mean, that was definitely something we had to overcome, and obviously we did. We got back there. We wanted to play them again, and fortunately we came out on the right side of it the next time.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about that, that mentality. I'm sure it would have been different going into that offseason, actually having won a state championship versus having lost it, and just what you guys did to prepare to be ready to have the dominant year you guys had that year.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, like I said, definitely something that we all had to mentally overcome, and I think it pushed us to go back and win the next year. I mean, we wanted to win it for the seniors that that missed out on it. Eric Carlson, Bob Sanders, Coach Cray now was the head coach, Scott Nichinsky, Garrett Mays, like all those guys. We wanted to go back and win it for those guys. So that was something that was always in the back of our mind.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes sense. Reflecting some more on your time at prep, obviously one of the things that I love about prep is the longtime teachers and coaches who had been at the school forever. I'm sure a lot of the teachers you had, I had. It's just something that made it special. um,
Yep.
who were some of those teachers or coaches that you had at prep that really made an impact on you that you would almost call a mentor in a sense? And I guess, were there certain lessons that you carried with you beyond your time at prep?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, so some of the teachers, Mr. Killy, was obviously around, awesome guy, great mentor. Mr. Wenrick was around. He was awesome, great teacher. Uh, and then, some of the coaches I had, obviously Mish is the football coach. Coach Joe and John Moore were both, obviously great mentors, very knowledgeable. I still talk to John Patrick, John's son, every once in a while about Iowa football and prep and all that. So that's cool to still talk with him a little bit. Then in track, I mean, I had Coach Grack, Coach Moffitt. I know Coach Moffitt's still around, so he's just a great guy. Mr. Heidelberg, Coach Heidelberg, who was our strength coach back then. Just a legend at prep, driving the bus everywhere, hearing his stories and things he had been through and all that. Just a great guy. And then other coaches I had, Coach Araby, Marcel Araby. I had him when I was, I think, my first 2 years at prep for basketball, and Coach Marnella, who was an assistant, and obviously everybody knows Miss Marnella was in the office at the time as a secretary. So just a bunch of great people that I had the opportunity to learn from. The lessons, just being a good person off the field, and it's not just about athletics and all that. Just being a good person. Coach Skinny was another one. Coach Calabrese were guys that I really looked up to. So yeah, I mean, those were the people I remember the most. Obviously, there's a ton more. I shouldn't even name people because you always forget somebody and leave out somebody. Just a great group of mentors I had at prep. Glad I was able to spend some time with those people.
Yeah, certainly. And, all those names, I've definitely met them or recognize them for sure. And just part of what makes the fabric of prep, excellent. People who just care, go above and beyond to take care of the students while they're here and become those, not just there to teach a class, but to really mentor the students there to help them in life ultimately.
Sure.
Yeah, and with that, the coaching side of it too. You mentioned Coach Moffitt, and you weren't just the stud football player. You also set records in track, as we mentioned. One thing that's pretty cool is to hear about how you were able to participate in multiple sports, and you mentioned basketball as well. How do you think that helped you as an athlete participate in multiple sports, especially as like a high school kid?
Well, so when I first, my freshman year at prep, I only played football and basketball. I didn't do anything in the spring. I was always a baseball player growing up, and I wasn't going to play baseball, so I was just going to take that spring season off, work out, lift, and go through all that. Didn't really know much about track, and that it was really even an option for something to do. But I ran into Coach Grack in the hallway. Beginning of my sophomore year, and I remember him saying, "Hey, well, I've seen you play. I know you're pretty athletic. I think you could be a pretty good hurdler for us on the track team." So, all right, I'll give it a try. Just because I like to compete. I mean, I wanted to be out there competing, and I tell that to our coaching now. I telling that to all of our kids. Go out for basketball, go out for wrestling, go out for track, baseball. Do as many sports as you can. And just compete. I think that's the biggest thing. You know, a lot of people nowadays want to specialize in one sport, and which is fine. But you know, I would rather have our guys out competing, you know, playing against somebody else in a sport than just in the weight room lifting. You know, and not competing. You got to compete in everything you do if you want to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Actually putting it in that context of go do a sport and just go compete, go play, go participate. Don't just be in the weight room lifting. I really like that, you know, as well as part of it. Just getting out there and getting those experiences at different sports and that competition aspect.
Yeah, I mean, it gets you. You know, you face some adversity that you have to fight through, and things like that. I mean, it's just you want to compete.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of us at Prep have always had that competitive spirit to us, and
Sure.
works out that way.
Sure.
So one of the questions that I have for you, and this is kind of a fun one. What does it mean to be a Rambler?
Well, I thought about this one. It's, you know, being a leader, I think is you know, to me, a Rambler. I mean, a lot of people I graduated with and a lot of prep grads that I know, you know, are leaders, right? I mean, they're the ones that people look to when, you know, in anything, in business or in sports or whatever it is. You know, just we've learned through our experience of prep how to be a leader. We've had good leaders, you know, leading our programs, leading the school, and so we see that we you know have the experience of knowing what a leader is and how it's done, how things should operate. So I think that's like the biggest thing for me is, you know, kind of what a Rambler is. You know, somebody with that do whatever it takes attitude. We're going to do whatever it takes to get things done. You know, the example I'll give is, you know, going back again to the Altoona game, right? I mean, the night before, I think we got like 3 feet of snow. 2 or 3 days before that game, we got like 3 or 4 feet of snow. And I mean, the prep community came together. I mean, I know a lot of our parents and people just in the community were out there at the stadium with snow blowers and shovels and all that. I mean, it's just, they were going to do whatever it took to play that game in here. You know, because the other option was we were going to have to travel to play. But they did what they had to do. They filled the bottom bowl at the stadium with snow, and you know, we were able to play the game. And you know, and looking back at the game, and we had to travel, maybe the game turns out different, and things don't work out the way they did that game. But just, you know, that just getting back. I mean, that's the prep Ramblers will do whatever it takes to get things done.
Yeah, I love that story. It reminded me of reading the 2000 Ramblers as part of that. Big thing was, if it wasn't for the community coming together to shovel the snow, move the snow, you guys are on the road. And like you said, it could be a totally different ball game. You guys traveling versus having that at our own stadium. And can imagine how packed that place was for that game that night.
Yeah, no, it was. Yeah, I mean, it was. Stadium was full. I mean, and that was the other thing about the prep community, right? I mean, the support we had throughout that season was unbelievable. I mean, the stadium was packed every game. Our road games, people were traveling, so it was, you know, it was a I mean, obviously just a fun year to be around and be part of the program.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's pretty cool to you know, talk about those times and be able to reflect back. A lot of people are familiar with your name, but maybe haven't heard the stories that you're sharing with us today and kind of your thoughts as you're going through the season. So I appreciate you sharing. So then you go on to Iowa. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience? You know, going from Cathedral Prep here in Pennsylvania to all the way out in Iowa. Obviously, you've made it a home now because that's where you're living. But can you talk to us about what it was like playing college football at Iowa at a big level? You were a team captain, multiple Big Ten championships, and just what that whole experience was like for you at Iowa.
Yeah, I mean, it was a blast. I mean, if you would have told me when I was probably even at the start of my junior year at prep that I was going to go, play football in college, I would have probably told you nuts. But the things just kind of happened, and I had a great junior year, and was able to fortunately be recruited, and Joe Moore, who was our coach at prep, had a good connection with Coach Ferentz out here at Iowa. Obviously, Bob, the season before I came out, Bob came out and had a great year. So it was an awesome experience being able to come out and play at Iowa, and I was fortunate to play as much as I did. Being a starter for all years and getting some great experience. Like you mentioned, we won 2 Big Ten titles, played the four big bowl games. So it was an awesome experience that I'm glad I was able to have, and times that I'll never forget.
One of my coworkers here, when I first told him about you and I linking up for this podcast episode, he goes, I had a poster of Ed Hinkel from that insane catch he had when he was at Iowa. He's like, I had it on my wall as a kid. It was the craziest catch I've ever seen. And he's like, I wish I could find it for you. But the legend continued at Iowa too for Ed Hinkel.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun catches. I mean, the biggest one, for me, was my freshman year. It was my first touchdown at Penn State. Right. I mean, Penn State they recruited me a little bit, but didn't really, didn't really show me the love or whatever that that I was getting at the other schools. So it was it was awesome to go back to Happy Valley, and score the diving catch in the back of the end zone. That was my first college touchdown. That was pretty cool, and had a lot of family there. And just anytime we came back to Happy Valley, we won.
Right.
Fortunately, we put in the time I was at I, we played them 3 times, and we were 3-0 against them. So I was very happy about that.
You got to put that in there.
Sorry to Charles. But luckily we were able to get those guys those 3 years.
That's funny. Yeah. Apologize, Charles, I'm sure he's going to listen to this, and Juice Scruggs, who also went, beyond your time, but he went to Penn State, and now he's with the Houston Texans. Yep. Couple of Penn Staters there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Mitch was telling me a little bit about he apparently got you and a bunch of other guys in the car, and you guys were driving around, going to look at colleges when you guys were first starting to, be recruited and whatnot. He said there's some stories that he doesn't want to share with me just for your sake, so that way it was
probably best. Yeah, no, I remember doing that. We rented a van and drove out to Michigan State, Iowa. You stopped at Notre Dame. But yeah, it was some fun stories from that group, that trip. So
yeah, that's cool. So you end up making a home of Iowa, and now I don't want to just go through your bio too quick. I mean, 7 state championships and a 56-game winning streak. I mean, I joked with you before, but I don't know what's more impressive, the coaching career you've had or your playing career. Just kudos to you all around with what you've been able to do there at Regina. And I'm just curious, as somebody who was a former just standout player, in high school and at the college level, and now you're on the other side of things, seeing it as a coach for a number of years now. But what's kind of been your approach to coaching? Like, what's your coaching philosophy? How do you approach building a winning culture based on your experiences? I just love talking about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to, I had great coaches growing up, with the guys that were mentors for me, from Mish to all the assistants that were there when Mish was around. And then, obviously Coach Ferentz and his staff. I've always been around great leaders. My first 14 years at Regina, Marv Cook was the head coach. I don't know, how much, people in the area will know that name, but he was, an Iowa legend. Went on and played for the Patriots. Was an All-Pro tight end. So he was the head coach at our school.
Wow.
Great guy. So I was able to, when I was first getting into coaching, it was actually his first year coaching too. We kind of came in together, and it was just we learned a lot together. But we kind of just went back to, what did our coaches, what did our coaches do? What, how did they approach things? And he was playing for Bill Parcells. I mean, it was guys like that. I mean, just hearing how those guys did things and how they went about, leading and different things like that is kind of just what we've always done. It's more about the relationships with the kids and understanding the kids, things like that. I mean, I tell people all the time, like we've had a lot of success, at the school, but I've never worn a Regina uniform and caught a ball or threw a pass or made a tackle. So, it's the kids that are the ones out there doing it. We can't do it without good kids, good players. So that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
You got to have kids that want to listen, want to learn.
Yeah, well, it seems like no surprise if the two of you were pairing up that the team was going to create success at some point there. So it's pretty neat for you guys to collectively bring together your experiences, the things you guys learned from your coaches, and then just playing careers too, to be able to put this together into a winning formula that you guys have had at Regina for this run now you've been at. And I think you mentioned you guys are 4-0 so far this year.
Yeah, so far, we got homecoming this week, and then we've got our Prep McDowell game next week with our rival school. So that'll be a big one. It'll be fun. So we'll see. Hopefully, we can keep things rolling here.
Absolutely, that's great. Well, and at the time that we're going to be putting this episode out on a Monday, the following Thursday of that week. We're going to be hosting our athletic Hall of Fame ceremony on the Thursday, and it'll be our homecoming weekend that weekend. But with the Hall of Fame for athletics, it was pretty cool that the 1999 football team is being inducted into the Hall of Fame, as well as your teammates that you've had, Jawan Walker and Joe Dipre. And so we've obviously been talking a lot about the 2000 team, of course, with that being your senior year. But can you talk to us about your reflection of that 99 team and some of the seniors that you've already mentioned today, but any memories that you specifically have with the 99 team that are significant?
Again, I just remember it being a group of guys that worked their butts off, and unfortunately we came up on the wrong end of that last game, but that team was probably just as good as the 2000 team. It was we were had a very talented group from top to bottom. Like you mentioned, guys like Eric Carlson as the quarterback, and having Bob and just all those seniors was just it was good. They kind of paved the way. Even the year before, I mean, we had a little bit of a rough year. Which would have been my sophomore year, but those guys kind of paved the way and ended up working hard and getting in the state finals and things like that. But just a great group. Fun to be around them as well.
Yeah. Well, I like what you said earlier about, you don't know if that 2000 team really gets over the hump if it wasn't for the 99 team, right? Paving the way and setting that standard for you guys on what's expected for Cathedral Prep football. So it's a pretty cool. I'm excited to be at the event, and I'll see a lot of your former teammates there and whatnot.
Yeah, unfortunately, I won't be able to make it. So I'll be on the sidelines that night myself. So, but
yeah,
yeah, it's awesome that that group. I mean, very deserving that that team was going in finally. So yeah, it's great to be a part of that. Glad to see those guys. You know, all those guys finally going in.
yeah, and specifically the players, Joe Dipre and Jawan Walker, outside of the team, they'll individually be inducted in the Hall of Fame. Any fun memories or stories about them you can share with us?
I don't know if there's anything I can share.
Right.
No, I mean Joe was awesome. I mean, he's a great leader on the defense. I mean, he was definitely the leader of that defense that year as our middle linebacker in 2000 and 99. He's tough. It's cool that he's going in with his dad, kind of the same. I was fortunate enough, the same my dad went in with me. So that's cool. Hopefully, he enjoys that experience, getting to share that with his dad. I'm sure he will. And then Jawan was just a freak athlete, very deserving of going in the Hall of Fame at Prep. And, without him, again, like he was a big part of that 2000 team and made some huge plays in the state finals that year and in all year, but a couple in that game specifically. But just a great athlete. And so it's cool to see him go in the Hall of Fame. So very deserving for him.
Yeah. And I'll just put a little plug in for anybody who's listening. Prior to us actually hosting the event, we'll be hosting it at Cathedral Prep. We'll be doing the inductions in our auditorium, and then followed by a reception, having hors d'oeuvres and drinks and whatnot in our new Student Life Center, and that's on Thursday. So if you're listening to this episode, you want to come out and support, all the inductees, come on out. We'd love to have you. So yeah, it's cool that we were lining up this podcast episode, Ed, before we even knew the inductees. So this just worked out really good.
Worked out good. Perfect.
Yeah. So I got one last question for you. It's a bonus one. I ask all the alumni who come on this question, but if you could go back in time, Ed, to June of 2001, speak at your graduation for prep, but knowing what you know now, kind of reflecting on your life and your years and whatnot, what would you say to your classmates at that time?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I don't know. Just, I guess, use the experience that we had at prep to want to do big things. I mean, I know there's a lot of people from our class that are, have management roles in companies, owner of companies. We've got guys in the FBI, things like that. I mean, just use the tools we learned at prep to continue on our life and use those tools that we have and go do big things.
Love it. Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. Father Jabo, who he was the headmaster in your year. I don't know if he coined the saying during your time or if it was later on, but he used to always say the decision to come to Cathedral Prep isn't a 4-year decision, it's a 40-year decision. And that kind of, you summarize that right there.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, cool, Ed, this has been fun. I appreciate you coming on the podcast, taking some time to share with us the memories. I know there's a lot of people who are going to be listening to this one, having fun, listening to the conversation and the things you had to share. A lot of those people having memories of you playing, and I'm sure there's some young people who've just heard the story and the legends of Ed Hinkel, and now they get to hear your voice.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm glad I was able to get on and make it work. And, thanks for thinking of me, and looking forward to hearing about that 99 team going in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. And if you ever make your way back to Erie, please hit me up. Let me know. We'd love to have you down for a tour of the school. And I'm sure we'll loop Mission to that too.
But yeah, anytime I'm back, I'll hit you guys up.
Sounds good. Appreciate it. Thanks, Ed.
All right, man. Appreciate it.